The first frost. You awaken slowly, as if the morning itself hesitates. The air is colder than it was yesterday, and the damp weight of the blanket tells you the season has shifted. You breathe out, and the faint cloud of your own breath hovers before fading. It is the first frost of the winter, a quiet signal that the long months ahead will not be hurried. The thatch roof above you creaks faintly as if in conversation with the frost. A crow caws somewhere beyond the wooden shutters, its voice carrying through the stillness. You touch the edge of the blanket. The wool is rough, slightly prickly, but warm in its way. Beneath it, the straw mattress shifts, a muted rustle like dry reeds. The smell is faintly sour, straw mixed with smoke that has seeped in from last night's hearth fire. You sit up, the air meets your face like a cool hand pressed gently against skin. The cottage is dim, only a thin pale line of light, marking where the shutters fail to meet. Your breath makes another cloud. You rub your hands together, and the sound is a soft rasp. Dry skin against dry skin. The work of sealing the cottage. The first frost does not merely announce itself. It demands small tasks. You know the wind will find its way through cracks, unless each one is seen to. You move slowly, for haste has no place in this morning. Step 1 is to gather straw. You press it into the gaps between wall and beam, twisting pieces so that they hold. The straw is dry, sharp at the ends, pricking your fingertips lightly. Step 2 is to fetch clay. You knead it with water until it softens, then smooth it into the wider spaces where the cold has already made itself known. The smell of damp earth rises, steady and grounding. Step 3 is to hang old cloths near the door, their edges stiff with previous winter's damp. They do not stop the wind entirely, but they remind it to move slower. The sound of your work is muted, straw pressed, clay smoothed, fabric settled. Outside, the frost continues in silence, decorating roof beams and empty cartwheels with a thin white lace. Myth and reality. It is often said that peasants in the medieval world starved as soon as frost arrived, but records tell a gentler truth. Stores were prepared weeks before this morning. Barrels of salted fish waited in cool corners. Root vegetables sat buried in sand-lined pits, preserved by patience. Dried beans rattled softly in their sacks. Historians still debate how plentiful these stores truly were, yet manorial accounts list harvest levies carefully. The reality was not abundance, but measured caution. The frost did not immediately empty bowls. It only reminded everyone to count what they had. A mild dilemma. At the edge of the hearth sits a small loaf of bread baked yesterday. Its crust is hardening, its inside still soft. You consider it. The first impulse is to eat it while it remains fresh, to taste the comfort of warm bread against the cold. Yet another thought whispers, the loaf might serve better tomorrow, when the frost presses harder. The decision is mild, not urgent. Whether the red is eaten now or later, there will be another loaf, smaller perhaps, but still something. You turn the loaf slowly in your hand. The surface is cool, and a faint smell of rye lingers. The dilemma rests not in survival, but in preference, and you let it sit unresolved for now. The village beyond. When you finally open the shutters, the sight is slow and pale. Frost clings to the bare branches of trees, to the thatch of roofs, to the wooden beams of sheds. The ground is stiff, crunching faintly underfoot as you step out. Your breath rises again, joining the faint smoke drifting from neighbors' chimneys. Old Bertram, your neighbor, already stands by his fence. He rubs his hands, sniffs, and mutters that the frost has arrived too early. He says this every year, as though winter itself listens. His breath escapes in thick puffs, matching the rhythm of his grumbling. From farther down the lane comes Agnes, the miller's wife. She wraps her shawl tighter and tells anyone who will listen that frost is a blessing, for it hardens the mud around the mill. She speaks with the certainty of one who has repeated the same sentence each winter for decades. The village is not loud, but its sound is steady. Hooves crunch on frozen earth. A dog barks once, then settles again. Somewhere an axe strikes wood, the sound sharp and hollow in the cold. Step by step banking the hearth for morning. Back inside, the hearth waits. Fire does not last idly through the night, it must be coaxed. The coals are faint, small red eyes hiding under ash. Step 1. You stir the ash gently, uncovering the glow. Step 2. You place small twigs over it, dry enough to catch without complaint. Step 3. You lay a thicker log across, feeling the cold grain against your palms before the heat begins to wake. The smell of smoke rises slowly, at first sharp, then softening into a familiar cloak. It weaves through the cottage, a reminder that warmth is as much ritual as necessity. A small story, it is said though not written in any grand chronicle, that one winter in a village not far away, a family forgot to seal their shutters properly. Frost crept in each morning and painted the walls with lace. When spring finally came, they claimed their cottage was blessed, for the frost had left shapes like angels on the boards. Whether true or not, the tale is told in whispers, a myth passed from one hearth to another. The cadence of the first night. By the time evening returns, the frost remains. It does not melt quickly in this season. Shadows grow long across the cottage floor. You sit again near the hearth, the warmth steady but never fierce. The bread still waits, perhaps tonight, perhaps tomorrow. Bertram's snores drift faintly through the walls, steady as a mill wheel. Agnes hums a tune as she passes outside, carrying her certainty into the dusk. The fire crackles softly as the night grows colder, and your eyes grow heavy in the rhythm of the first frost. The cottage interior. The frost still lingers outside, but inside the cottage, life continues in its measured rhythm. You notice details that yesterday seemed ordinary, but today appear sharpened by the cold. The room is not grand, not spacious, yet every part of it holds a purpose. In winter the cottage becomes less a dwelling and more a shield, its walls asked to do more than simply stand. The air carries a mixture of scents, smoke from the hearth, faint mildew from the damp corners, and the earthy undertone of rushes spread across the floor. It is not unpleasant, it is steady, layered, and familiar. When you move your foot across the rushes, you hear the faint crunch, the whisper of stems breaking. Each step is softened, the sound absorbed by straw and herbs hidden among the rushes to sweeten the air. The roof and rafters. Above you beams cross the ceiling, darkened by years of smoke. They creak gently, as though stretching against the cold. Between the beams, the thatch roof is packed thick. Here and there, small feathers poke out, reminders of the birds who lent their down to the roof. You reach up, brushing your fingertips along a beam. The wood is rough, scarred with shallow cuts from the axe that shaped it. A flake of soot drifts down when your sleeve brushes against it, landing softly on your shoulder. Historians note that smoke-filled rafters were a feature, not a flaw. With no chimney in many cottages, the smoke rose, lingered, and eventually seeped out through the thatch. It stained beams black, but also kept insects away. The inconvenience of smoke doubled as a quiet safeguard. Rushes underfoot, a step-by-step renewal. Rushes are not permanent. They wear thin, they sour, and they must be replaced. The task is small but steady, carried out step by step. Step 1. You gather bundles of dried rushes, long and flexible. Step 2. You scatter them evenly across the floor, layering fresh over old. Step 3. You mix in herbs, rosemary, mint, or even lavender if fortune allows. Their scent rises faintly, masking dampness. Step 4. You pat the surface down with your palms, smoothing it until the floor feels soft again. The result is a simple carpet, not stitched but scattered, not sewn but arranged. It will not last the year, but it will last the winter. Old Bertram's complaint. Through the thin wall you hear old Bertram's voice. He mutters to himself, as he often does. Today's subject is the roof. He swears that his beams groan louder than anyone else's, though no one else seems to notice. He insists the frost is heavier on his cottage, because his fence leans east instead of west. You smile faintly. Bertram's complaints are as much part of the cottage landscape as the beams themselves. Without them, the air might feel too still. His grumbles weave through winter like a low accompaniment to the season's song. The hearth as center. The hearth remains the center, not only of warmth, but of rhythm. Its stones are darkened, some cracked, each holding the memory of countless fires. When you sit before it, the glow paints the room in amber hues. Shadows stretch across the rushes, long and thin, like sleepy fingers. The crackle of burning wood mixes with occasional pops, as sap trapped inside releases itself. You feel the warmth against your face, a slow spreading heat that contrasts with the cool air at your back. The smell of wood smoke is thick, coating your tongue lightly when you breathe. Some scholars believe hearth smoke shortened lives, settling in lungs over years. Yet to the medieval villager, smoke was not a hazard but a companion. It told them where the center of the house was, and where to gather when cold pressed too close. A mild dilemma. Near the hearth lies a pile of logs, not large, not endless. Each one represents a choice. Do you place another on the fire now, chasing greater warmth? Or do you let the fire burn slowly, saving fuel for nights colder than this? The decision is not urgent. Either way, the fire will survive. Yet you feel the quiet weight of it, the awareness that each log is measured against time. You set the thought aside, letting it join the bread dilemma of yesterday, mild and unresolved. Agnes and her gossip. When Agnes the miller's wife visits, she enters without knocking. She sits heavily on the bench near the hearth, brushing frost from her shawl. She speaks quickly, as if words themselves are fuel against the cold. She tells you that someone's pig has gone missing, likely wandered into the woods. She claims the frost makes pigs wander farther. She tells you that Bertram's roof will collapse before spring, though she has said the same for 3 winters now. Her gossip is not sharp, not cruel. It is soft, repetitive, a rhythm as steady as the hearth's crackle. It fills the cottage with sound, and when she leaves, the silence feels thicker than before. Rules of the cottage. There are, unspoken but firm, rules for keeping the cottage steady in winter. Sweep the rushes before dawn, or the dirt will settle deeper. Feed the animals before yourself, for their hunger grows louder. Bank the hearth each night with patience. Keep cloth hung by the door, no matter how damp it becomes. Speak softly in the morning, for sound carries strangely in the cold. Mend cracks with straw at once, before frost makes them large. These rules are not written, yet they repeat in every household, whispered across generations. A myth about warmth. It is tempting to imagine that cottages in winter were entirely cold, that families shivered without relief, yet accounts suggest otherwise. Warmth existed, though unevenly. Near the hearth, it was almost too much. Farther from it, breath turned visible. Comfort was a matter of movement, of shifting closer and then back. The myth of constant cold dissolves into a reality of adjustment. Neither comfort nor misery, but balance. Evening's cadence. As evening settles, you look once more around the cottage. The rushes lie clean, the beams hold steady, the hearth glows. Bertram's snores begin their familiar rhythm. Agnes's gossip lingers in memory like smoke after a flame. You pull the blanket close, scratchy against your chin, and listen to the fire as it settles into softer crackles. Shadows lengthen, the air cools, and the cottage interior folds itself gently around you. The fire crackles softly as the night grows colder, and you drift again into uneasy rest. Food for the long cold. The cottage carries with it a steady truth. Winter is not simply endured, it is rationed. Every loaf, every bean, every salted fish, becomes part of a quiet arithmetic stretched across weeks. You sit near the hearth again, staring at the small collection of foods set aside, and you begin to imagine how each will carry you forward. The smell of dried beans drifts faintly from a sack in the corner. They rattle softly when moved, like dull beats. Beside them, root vegetables sit in baskets, turnips, onions, carrots, some still carrying soil clinging to their skins. A barrel of salted fish rests nearby, its lid tightened, its scent escaping only faintly. The air carries the tang of salt, the heaviness of brine. The daily pottage. Most days you prepare the same dish, pottage. It is not grand, not varied, yet it is faithful. The making of pottage is a slow, almost meditative routine. Step 1. Fill the pot with water, cool and faintly metallic, drawn from the Step 2. Add handfuls of beans, dried, and waiting to soften. They clink softly against the pot, then sink beneath the water. Step 3. Chop a turnip, its skin cool and rough, its inside pale and damp. Add it to the mixture. Step 4. Sprinkle herbs, parsley if dried, sage if saved from autumn's garden. Their scent rises faintly sharp against the smoke. Step 5. Hang the pot above the fire, letting the heat coax flavor slowly, steam curling upward. The result is not surprising, not bold. It is steady, filling and patient. The myth of monotony. It is often imagined that peasants ate only gruel, day after day, without variation. Yet records suggest otherwise. Some days a rabbit snared in the hedgerow added richness. On feast days pork or goose was shared, its fat sizzling, its scent drifting across the village. Even dried fruits, apples, plums, or figs appeared, preserved in sacks or traded. The myth of monotony dissolves into a reality of modest variety. Not abundance, but small surprises carried through long months. A mild dilemma. Today, as you stir the pottage, a rabbit sits skinned and ready by the hearth. Caught in a snare yesterday, its meat would add flavor and strength, yet you pull. Should it be added to the pot now, enjoyed with warmth and satisfaction, or should it be salted, preserved, kept for weeks ahead when stores grow thin? The dilemma is quiet, not urgent. The rabbit will serve either way. You let the thought rest, listening instead to the bubbling pot. The ambitious cabbage. On the bench nearby lies a cabbage. Its leaves are thick, green fading to pale yellow. When set in the pot it expands, almost proudly. The steam rising from it carries a smell not just of cabbage, but of ambition, as though it plans to take over the pot entirely. Agnes, when she visits, calls it the Lord of Winter Vegetables. She claims no dish can resist the cabbage's influence. Old Bertram mutters that cabbages give him dreams too vivid to enjoy, though no one listens much to Bertram's complaint. Step by step, preserving meat. When meat is rare, it must be stretched. You recall the steps, steady and deliberate. Step 1. Rub salt into the meat, coarse grains pressed into every surface. The crystals sting your fingertips faint. Step 2. Hang the meat in the cool air, letting wind carry away dampness. Step 3. Cover it in cloth to keep flies away, though winter itself does most of that work. Step 4. Check it daily, ensuring no mold creeps where it is unwelcome. This is not preservation for years, but for wit enough to bridge a gap until spring's promise. Feast and fast. The church bells do not stop ringing simply because the frost lingers. They mark days of fasting and days of feasting. On fast days meat is set aside, fish takes its place, or beans, or eggs when hens are laying. On feast days, however, abundance is displayed, however modestly. Records from manorial accounts list extra ale brewed for Christmas, or special bread baked with spices saved through the year. Such days broke the rhythm, gave villagers reason to gather. Even Bertram, who grumbles through most meals, is known to smile when ale flows freely. A moral question. You glance at the sack of beans again. Agnes mentioned yesterday that her supply has spoiled, damp having seeped in. You could share a handful, giving her stew more substance. Yet you know each handful shortens your own supply. The question is gentle, not heavy. Will you share openly, or will you pretend your beans are nearly gone as well? Either choice will pass without judgment, for winter is patient with small deceit. The ale barrel. Beside the food sits another treasure. Ale, brewed in autumn. It is dark, thick, and earthy. The barrel is not large. Each mug poured from it is measured. The ale smells of grain, faint sweetness, and something like damp wood. When sipped, it tastes like friendship strained through mud, comforting but unpolished. Bertram insists ale keeps the frost out of his bones. Agnes claims it sharpens her gossip. You drink it slowly, letting its warmth spread, if only by suggestion. Evening's cadence. As darkness folds again across the cottage, the pottage simmers to completion. You eat slowly, the warmth spreading through you. The rabbit remains untouched. The beans rattle softly. The ale settles in your stomach. Outside, frost deep. The sky carries no stars tonight, only cloud. Within, the hearth glows, the pot cools, and the cabbage continues its ambitious conquest of flavor. The fire groans, the stew thickens, and the night grows heavy with stillness. Work in winter. The frost does not end labor, it only changes its rhythm. In summer, fields call with urgency, voices raised by sunlight. In winter, work turns inward, quieter, slower, more deliberate. The tasks wait inside cottages, in barns, in sheds, each one modest yet necessary. You rise with the pale light, and find the day already carrying its own list. The smell of smoke clings to your clothes before you even move. It is the fragrance of winter itself, wool mixed with ash, straw mixed with damp. Your hands are dry from the cold, fingertips rough. You rub them together, and the sound is a rasp that accompanies your first steps of the day. Tools to mend. On the bench lies a wooden rake, one tine cracked. Nearby sits a mattock, its handle split from years of use. Tools are not discarded quickly. They are patched, repaired, made to last through many winters. Step 1. Heat resin near the fire, letting its sharp scent fill the air. Step 2. Press the resin into cracks, sealing them with patience. Step 3. Bind with cord, twisted tight, the fibers rough under your finger. The result is not perfect, not new, but steady. A tool returned to usefulness, carrying its scars like quiet stories. A myth about winter idleness. It is sometimes imagined that winter left peasants idle, that work stopped until the thaw. Yet manorial records, listing rents and dues, show otherwise. Winter was a season of mending, of weaving, of carving wooden bowls, of spinning wool into thread. Work shifted, but it never ceased. The myth of idleness dissolves into reality. Steady labor in smaller spaces, measured by candlelight and fire glow. Spinning wool. In the corner sits a basket of raw wool. Its smell is faintly sour, lanolin clinging to fibers. You pick up the spindle, its weight familiar. Step 1. Tease the wool apart, pulling fibers until they loosen. Step 2. Twist them slowly onto the spindle, fingers working in rhythm.
Step 3. Let the spindle drop, spinning downward, the thread tightening. The sound is barely audible, a faint whir, the brush of wool against fingers. The thread gathers, thin but strong. This thread will become cloth, perhaps a tunic, perhaps a blanket. Winter is made softer by threads gathered patiently. A mild dilemma. The thread in your hand grows uneven, thick in some places, thin in others. You could unravel it, and start again, seeking neatness. Or you could let it remain, knowing cloth made from uneven thread still warms. The choice is simple, yet it lingers. Perfect thread or faster progress. You let it rest, the spindle turning again in your hand. Bertram's fence. From outside comes the sound of Bertram muttering. He stands by his leaning fence, tapping it with a stick, as though that alone might straighten it. He complains the frost has bent the posts, though others suspect his goats simply lean too heavily. He asks whether you might help mend it. The work is not urgent. The goats are unlikely to escape in winter, yet the request lingers. Should you lend your morning to Bertram's fence, or save it for your own tool? A mild moral puzzle, softened by the knowledge that Bertram will still be complaining tomorrow. The Winter Chores Code. Every cottage carries unspoken rules for winter labor. They are not written, yet they repeat with the steadiness of habit. Mornings are for mending, before light fades. Wood is split in pairs, one swings, one stacks. Thread spun in silence is stronger, though Agnes disputes the fence posts must be checked, even if goats seem content. Bread should be baked before noon, while hearths are hottest. Work should end before bells, for evening belongs to the fire. These rules create rhythm, a steady pattern where otherwise the days would blur. Sound of the barn. You step outside into the barn. The air smells of hay, dry and sweet, though tinged with the musk of animals. The sound is a mixture, hooves shifting, lowing from cattle, the creak of wood under frost. Inside, ropes are checked, stalls clean. A broom brushes straw across the floor, its sound rhythmic, almost meditative. Each sweep clears a little more space, each sound folds into the stillness of morning. Step by step repairing a roof patch. Somewhere above, a small hole lets frost drift into the barn. You set to mend. Step 1. Climb the ladder slowly, its rungs cold beneath your hands. Step 2. Press fresh thatch into the gap, the stalks stiff and scratchy. Step 3. Tie them with cord, the knot biting against your palm. Step 4. Press down until the thatch settles, overlapping like scale. The hole is sealed, not forever, but for another season. Evening reflection. By dusk, the cottage is filled with the results of small labors. A tool mended, thread gathered, wood stacked. None are grand achievements, yet each task lays a stone on the path of endurance. Agnes passes by again, announcing she has spun enough wool for a new shawl. She says this loudly, hoping Bertram hears. Bertram grumbles back about fences and frost. Their voices weave together like the day's last story. Inside, you sit again by the hearth. Smoke curls upward. The spindle rests beside you. The fire settles into soft crackles. The fire groans, the shadows stretch, and the night folds over your work with calm finality. The village soundscape. Winter narrows the village, not in space but in sound. In summer, noise stretches wide, fields filled with voices, markets loud with barter, children running across open ground. In winter the soundscape becomes contained, softened by frost, carried only as far as still air allows. You step outside the cottage and hear the season as much as you see it. The first sound is the crunch beneath your boots. Frosted earth answers every step with a brittle reply. It is not loud, yet in the stillness, it feels amplified, as though the ground itself wishes to remind you of its presence. A crow calls once from the woods, its voice harsh against the pale morning. From the distance, faint bells mark the hour. They do not carry far in this cold, their echo shortened by the air, yet they remain steady, marking time with patient authority.
The quiet between sounds lies silence, deeper than in warmer months. The snow, when it falls, muffles everything beneath its soft weight. Even Bertram's mutters seem swallowed, his voice quieter though no less frequent. You notice how a dog's bark fades quickly, how an axe's strike seems hollow, how voices feel wrapped in wool. This silence is not emptiness. It is layered with potential sound, the creak of a cart, the flap of a crow's wing, the faint rattle of wind through shutters. The village becomes an instrument played with restraint, every note deliberate. Myth of the wordless peasant. It is tempting to imagine peasants lived in silence, with little music or cheer, yet records and songs tell otherwise. Villagers carried tunes, rhymes and chants. Carols in winter, dances at gatherings, riddles exchanged by firelight. The myth of silence yields to reality. Peasants filled quiet with their own voices, weaving sound into the long dark. Agnes's endless tune. As you walk, you hear Agnes before you see her. She hums a tune again, the same she hummed yesterday and the day before. It is a simple melody, without beginning or end, drifting in circles. She insists it wards off frostbite, though no one quite believes her. Still, her humming becomes part of the village's soundscape. You recognize it instantly, the way you might recognize a bell. Without Agnes's tune, the lane would feel emptier. Even Bertram admits this, though he mutters it reluctantly. Step by step, the bell's song. The church bell, though faint in winter, carries rich. Its ringing is measured, predictable. Step 1, the rope is pulled, rough hemp slipping through the sacristan's hands. Step 2, the bell swings, its bronze surface cold, catching dim light. Step 3, the clapper strikes, first heavy, then rhythmic, sending waves of sound outward. Step 4, the sound travels, softened by frost, reaching cottages like a voice wrapped in cloth. The bell does not shout, it murmurs steadily, reminding all that time moves even when snow slows everything else. You glance at the path, icy, uneven. Should you walk to the church, joining others in cold benches, or remain by the hearth, warm, listening faintly to the bell's echo instead? The dilemma is mild, softened by the knowledge that no judgment comes for choosing warmth. Some walk, some stay. Both remain part of the village's rhythm. The geese at the pond. Near the frozen pond, geese shuffle and honk. Their voices are sharp, echoing off ice. One flaps its wings noisily, sending frost spray. Children laugh chasing the sound, though their laughter is subdued by the cold, short bursts carried quickly away. Historians note that geese were prized for more than meat. Their feathers stuffed mattresses, their down insulated cloaks. Their honking was not nuisance, but warning, a natural alarm in a village without locks. Quirky sound exaggeration. You pass Bertram's cottage. He snores loudly within, even in daylight. His snore rattles like a cartwheel missing a spoke, steady but uneven. Agnes claims she once mistook his snoring for a church bell rung badly. Bertram denies this, though his denials arrive between snores. Dogs bark less, for cold keeps them curled. Children's laughter is brief, for their lips numb quickly. Snoring travels farther through thin walls. Humming is tolerated, if not entirely welcomed. Crows claim morning, owls claim night. These rules are unwritten, yet they hold season after season. Evening cadence. As dusk gathers, sounds settle into softer tones. The axe strikes fewer times. The geese tuck their heads. Agnes's tune fades as she steps indoor. Bertram's snores take their nightly place, steady and unyielding. The village becomes quieter still. The only sound that remains constant is the fire's crackle, low and deliberate. You listen, eyes half closed, as the silence folds around you again. The fire whispers, the bell fades, and the night closes like a heavy blanket. Winter faith and ritual. The frost does not halt devotion. If anything, winter makes faith more visible, each ritual sharpened by the cold. The church at the center of the village stands steady, its stone walls pale against snow, its roof darkened by smoke. You walk slowly along the path, boots pressing into frost, each step accompanied by the faint crunch that now feels like part of prayer itself. The air smells of damp stone as you approach the door. Incense lingers faintly, trapped in the cold air inside. Your breath joins the smoke, rising in pale clouds. The wooden benches are stiff, hard beneath you. The sound of shifting wool cloaks fills the silence between prayer. You notice the texture of the wood, smooth in some places, splintered in others, worn by generations of hands and elbows. Advent and Epiphany. Winter is framed by observances. Advent prepares, slow weeks of fasting, of candlelight, of waiting. Epiphany celebrates the memory of gifts and journeys, of stars guiding strangers to a stable. Each season carries its own rituals, drawn carefully across the calendar. Historians note that parish records often listed payments for candles, for feasts, for small repairs made in winter months. Ritual was not only spiritual, but practical. Candles lit the dark evenings, feasts brightened lean weeks. Religion wove itself into survival, the myth of relentless piety. It is tempting to imagine every villager kneeling daily in fervent prayer, Yet accounts suggest a quieter truth. Attendance at church varied, some went faithfully, others less so, especially when frost made the path treacherous. Devotion was steady but often practical, shaped by weather and work. The myth of relentless piety softens into reality, faith practiced in balance with hearth, field and season. A mild dilemma. You sit on the bench, listening as the priest reads. The cold creeps into your toes, numbing them through worn boots. The fire at home waits. Should you remain for the full service, respectful and steady, or should you slip away early, returning to warmth before frost deepens further? The choice is gentle. Both paths carry their own small virtues. You shift slightly on the bench, and let the decision linger, unresolved. A trial of animals. The church has seen stranger rituals. In records from towns not far from here, animals were sometimes brought to trial. A pig, accused of eating grain, might be symbolically punished. A rooster, said to have laid an egg, might be declared guilty of unnatural behavior. These stories, half believed, half mocked, traveled across village. They remind you that faith was not only solemn but curious, tangled with superstition and humor. A step-by-step lighting candles. Candles, small as they are, carry ritual. The act of lighting them is measured, deliberate. Step 1. Trim the wick, blackened from last flame. The char rubs softly against your fingers. Step 2. Strike flint to steel. The spark sharp, the sound like a tiny bell. Step 3. Bring flame to wick. Watch wax soften, feel warmth spread faintly. Step 4. Set the candle upright, its glow a fragile circle against the cold stone. Each candle adds a note to the symphony of light, flickering, steadying, softening shadows. Agnes's commentary. Agnes whispers during the service, claiming the candles burn unevenly, because the priest bought cheaper wax. She insists her own beeswax candles would last longer. Bertram, seated 2 benches back, coughs loudly, as if to cover her words. Their small quarrels become part of ritual too, as familiar as hymns. Rules of winter devotion. Faith in winter follows its own unspoken rules. Sit near the aisle if you plan to leave early. Wrap wool tight, for stone walls hold cold stubbornly. Candles are watched as carefully as prayers. Gossip is whispered, never shouted. Hymns may drift off key but must never cease entirely. Coins for offerings are counted twice before being dropped. Leaving early requires a cough or sigh to excuse it. These rules are not in scripture, but they are followed all the same. Quirky exaggeration. Bertram's cough echoes once again, long and uneven. Agnes mutters, it sounds like a goat learning to sing hymns. She says this with the solemnity of a sermon, and though you stifle a smile, the sound remains in your mind as the service continues. Evening's cadence. When the service ends, you step outside into night. The stars are faint, blurred by your breath rises, joining the smoke from the chimney. The church bell rings once, low, steady, folding into the silence of the village. You walk home slowly, boots crunching, cloak wrapped tight. The smell of incense lingers faintly in your wool. The hearth waits, its fire dim but ready to wake again. The bell hums, the frost deepens, and the night folds over you with gentle weight, clothing against the chill. The frost lingers each morning, and you know that warmth now depends less on the fire and more on the layers you carry with you. Winter clothing in the village is not chosen for beauty alone. It is chosen for endurance, for patience, for survival through days when breath turns white and fingers grow stiff. You open the chest at the foot of the bed and see the season's protection waiting in folds of cloth. The smell rises first, lanolin from wool, faintly sour and oily, mixed with damp earth that never seems to leave the fibers. The touch is coarse, scratchy against your fingers. Wool holds warmth but never smoothness. Beneath the weight of layers you feel both comfort and step by step dressing for the cold. Clothing is not donned all at once. It arrives in order, a ritual of preparation. Step 1. Begin with the linen shift, thin and cool against the skin. The first barrier. Its weave is plain, its surface softened by many wash. Step 2. Drawn woolen hose, each leg pulled slowly, fabric rough against calves. The sound is a faint rasp, cloth dragging across skin. Step 3. Add the tunic, thicker wool, its seams heavy with thread. You pull it over your head, the fabric settling like a blanket worn upright. Step 4. Fasten a belt, leather stiff with use. Tools, knife or pouch may hang here, weight pulling lightly at the hips. Step 5. Wrap a cloak across shoulders, pinning it with a brooch or knot. The cloak smells strongly of lanolin, rain and smoke, memories of last winter still woven in. Step 6. If fortune allows,
Add gloves of rough leather or mittens of patched wool. Fingers flex stiffly, grateful for any covering. At last you stand dressed, not elegant but shielded. Each layer presses against you, whispering that warmth is built slow. The myth of brown monotony. It is said that medieval peasants wore only drab brown, that the village was a field of mud-colored cloaks, yet fragments of cloth, records of dyes, and mentions in wills suggest otherwise. Madder reds, wad blues, even faint yellows appeared in modest amount. Faded, yes, but present. A simple tunic might carry a red stripe at the hem, or a hood dyed blue though washed pale by winter rains. The myth of uniform dullness softens into reality. Muted color, not absence of color. Bertram's double socks. Bertram insists each winter that 2 pairs of socks are required. He announces it loudly, lifting his boot to prove both are in place. He swears it is the only way to outwit frost. Agnes replies that Bertram's socks smell ambitious, as if trying to replace his boots entirely. Their quarrel becomes part of the village winter, half advice, half performance. Step by step patching a cloak. Clothes rarely arrive new. They are patched, extended, made to last. Step 1. Take a piece of cloth not matching, merely sturdy. Step 2. Lay it across the tier, aligning edges loosely. Step 3. Stitch with thread, the needle cold against fingertips, the pull steady. Step 4. Tie the knot tightly, pressing with your thumb until it holds. The cloak bears its scars openly, patches of many winters layered like quiet memories. A mild dilemma. Your cloak's brooch is loose. The pin bends easily, threatening to break. You could spend an afternoon repairing it carefully, or simply knot the cloak with cord and move on. Repair demands time. The knot offers immediacy. Both choices keep the cloak closed, and you let the thought rest undecided. Rules of winter clothing. Villagers know the unspoken code of dress in frost. Always wear linen first, even when wool warms best when layered, not when worn alone. Mittens are better than gloves, for fingers huddle together. Socks are counted in pairs, not singles when frost grows sharp. Cloaks are never left near fire unattended. Sparks ruin faster than frost. Dye fades but color still speaks of care. Every patch is proof of patience. These rules are followed more faithfully than many laws, for frost forgives little. Quirky exaggeration. Agnes boasts of her shawl newly woven, dyed faintly with onion skin. She declares it so fine that even frost hesitates to touch her when she wears it. Bertram mutters that the shawl looks like soup. Agnes ignores him, humming louder than usual, letting the shawl rustle like pride itself. Evening cadence. As the sun fades, you remove layers one by one, folding them carefully. The smell of wool lingers in the air, mixed with smoke from the hearth. The shift remains, cool against skin, while the heavier garments rest for tomorrow. The cloak lies patched but steady. The hose stretch on the bench. Bertram's socks dry by the fire. Agnes's shawl hangs proudly. You settle beneath the blanket. Shadows soften, wool scratches, the fire crackles. The frost presses closer to the walls, but the layers of cloth remain ready for morning. The fire sighs, the wool itches gently, and the night folds over you with steady patience. Neighbors and social ties. Winter presses villages inward. With fields resting beneath frost and days shortened by dim light, neighbors become both comfort and necessity. You notice how voices drift more often between cottages, how footsteps linger at doorways, how gossip thickens like smoke. The village in winter is not a scatter of houses. It is a woven cloth, stitched together by habit and need. The air outside carries the faint smell of burning wood, each cottage offering its own variation. Oak in one hearth, birch in another, peat in a third. You walk the lane, frost crunching beneath your boots, and see neighbors at work. Bertram fussing at his fence again, Agnes humming while she carries a bucket, children stamping their feet to keep warm. The sounds overlap, a subdued chorus against the hush of cold air. The myth of isolation. It is easy to imagine medieval villages as solitary, each family locked in its cottage through the winter, yet accounts show otherwise. Ale was brewed and shared, bread traded, labor neighbors helped one another mend roofs, slaughter animals, and carry wood. Parish records even list fines for refusing to aid a neighbor when asked. The myth of isolation fades into the reality of cooperation. Villages survived not by withdrawal, but by threads of connections stretched across frost and hunger. The visit of Agnes. Agnes enters your cottage without waiting, her shawl trailing frost. She sits by the hearth, and begins her steady stream of work. She reports that one of her chickens wandered into your yard this morning, And she asks, though more like declares whether you have seen it. The dilemma is mild. You did see the chicken and you quietly enjoyed the egg it left behind. Do you confess and offer thanks or remain silent and let Agnes search her yard again? Neither choice carries great weight, yet the moment hovers. Another small puzzle of village ties. Agnes hums while waiting, the same tune she carries everywhere. It becomes part of the air itself, circling like smoke above the hearth. Ale as social glue. That evening neighbors gather. A small barrel of ale is tapped, the liquid thick, dark, earthy. The smell is of grain, faintly sweet, faintly sour. Each mug poured is a gift, passed across rough hands. The taste is muddy, uneven, but comforting. Someone remarks that the ale tastes like friendship strained through mud. Bertram nods solemnly, then adds that friendship always carries sediment. Laughter ripples quietly, the kind that rises softly before fading, step by step sharing labor. Neighbors trade more than words. Work itself is passed around. Step 1, one household slaughters a pig. Smoke and brine begin their work. Step 2, portions are shared. Fat rendered into lard. Intestines cleaned for sausage. Meat salted or hung. Step 3, helpers are given slices as thanks. A meal eaten together before work ends. Step 4, the same helpers expect aid in weeks to come when their own animals or tasks demand it. This exchange is not written, not enforced, but it repeats like ritual. Rules of winter companionship. Every village carries quiet codes for social ties. Ale is shared, never hoarded. Gossip may wound, but never silent. Fences are everyone's concern, though Bertram insists otherwise. Chickens return eventually, though not always to the same yard. Candles are lent, but always counted. Warmth is given freely when neighbors visit, even if fuel grows low. Silence is acceptable, but absence is not. These rules steady the village, as firm as the church bell or the hearth's crackle. Quirky exaggeration. Bertram swears his goats speak to him in winter, bleating advice about fence. Agnes insists her shawl keeps her warmer than any cloak in the village. Both repeat their claims until they become part of local law, half believed, half mocked. You hear children whisper that Bertram's goats plan the spring planting, and Agnes's shawl frightens frost itself. Such stories soften the cold, turning neighbors into legends. A mild dilemma. Later you notice Agnes has left her shawl behind, hanging near your hearth. You could return it tomorrow, or keep it quietly for a night, enjoying its warmth. The choice is not heavy, but it lingers. Generosity weighed against quiet selfishness. Evening cadence. As night falls, neighbors disperse. Ale mugs are emptied. Laughter fades. Footsteps crunch along the lane. The village grows quieter, each cottage folding in again, yet not alone. The warmth of shared voices lingers even as silence returns. You pull your blanket close. The hearth glows faintly. Smoke drifts upward, and the sound of Bertram's muttering fades into snores. Agnes's tune hums in memory, as steady as the bell. The fire flickers, the village rests, and the night drapes itself over all with gentle weight. Winter illness and remedies. Winter carries with it not only frost, but coughs, fevers and the quiet weight of illness. The cottage, though shielded, cannot keep every chill outside. You awaken one morning to the sound of your own breath, heavy, your throat roughened. The air feels thicker, as though smoke has settled deeper than usual. Illness, when it arrives, does so without announcement, and lingers as long as it pleases. The smell of herbs hangs faintly in the room. Sage drying by the hearth, thyme tied in bundles. Each herb promises relief, though never certainty. You run your hand along the wool blanket, coarse and scratchy, pulling it close. The wool holds warmth, but cannot soothe the ache that spreads through your limbs. The myth of helpless villagers. It is often imagined that medieval villagers had no recourse against sickness, left only to suffer. Yet manorial accounts and household notes mention remedies, herbs and treatments. Remedies were not cures, but they offered comfort. Sage for throats, thyme for coughs, horehound for the chest, honey for wounds. The myth of helplessness softens into the reality of resourcefulness. Step by step, brewing herbal tea. When coughs arrive, tea is prepared. The process is steady, simple. Step 1, draw water from the bucket, still cold from the well. Step 2, place thyme and sage into the pot, their scents sharp, rising even before heat begins. Step 3, hang the pot above the fire, watch steam curl and drift. Step 4, pour into a cup, steam warming your face, scent filling the air. Step 5, add honey if fortune allows, its sweetness coating the bitterness of herbs. The taste is earthy, sharp, slightly sweet. It soothes slowly, not with sudden relief, but with patient comfort. A mild dilemma. The honey jar sits nearly empty. You could add the last spoonful to today's tea, easing your throat with sweetness. Or you could save it, for another day when illness grows worse, or when a neighbor needs it more. The decision weighs lightly, yet lingers. You set the jar aside, undecided. Stories of illness. Bertram coughs loudly in his cottage next door, a hacking sound that interrupts his muttering. He declares it is only the frost, though Agnes insists he has been coughing since autumn. Agnes herself claims never to fall ill, crediting her onion skin shawl as protection. She repeats this proudly, even when others smile faintly at the claim. In court rolls from nearby villages, fines are recorded for leaving livestock unclean, a task believed to spread sickness. The connection between filth and illness was sensed, if not fully understood. Rats scurry near grain bins, tails flicking, their presence tolerated until fear of plague makes neighbors whisper.
Rules of winter healing. Though unwritten, villagers follow rules for tending illness. Keep herbs hanging near the hearth, ready for steeping. Cover coughs with cloth, even if the cloth grows damp. Share broth with the weak, even if portions shrink. Burn rushes more often when sickness lingers. Air the cottage briefly, letting frost chase stale breath. Trust in honey, even when little remains. Speak softly, for loud voices weigh heavily on the ill. These rules carry no penalty if broken, yet they are remembered and followed with care. Quirky exaggeration. Bertram insists his goats cure illness simply by standing nearby. He claims their warmth drives fevers away, though others say his goats smell like the fever itself. Agnes argues that her humming keeps her healthier than all herbs combined. She hums louder each time she declares it, as if daring frost to test her. A moral puzzle. Agnes visits, hearing your cough. She offers a bundle of dried horehound, though she clearly values it. You could accept using it for relief, or you could decline politely, leaving her supply intact. Illness presses you, but pride presses also. The decision rests like the honey jar, small yet persistent. Evening cadence. The hearth glows, tea simmers, and the air grows thick with the smell of herbs. Your cough softens, though it does not vanish. Bertram coughs again through the wall. Agnes hums louder, as if to cover him. The sound becomes the winter chorus. Cough, hum, crackle of fire. You lie back beneath the blanket, wool scratchy, warmth steady. The herbs soothe, the honey lingers faintly. The frost presses closer outside. The fire whispers, the herbs breathe, and the night folds over you with heavy calm. The longest nights. The nights grow longer than the days, stretching across hours that seem unwilling to end. You sit by the hearth, listening to the fire shift slowly from crackle to hiss, from hiss to silence, before stirring it back to life. Outside, frost deepens. Inside, shadows grow. Winter's longest nights are not frightening, but steady, patient, as though time itself has slowed its steps. The smell of smoke lingers thick, clinging to wool and hair. You run your hand across the bench, feeling its surface polished by countless evenings before. The air is cool at your back, warm at your face, a balance held only so long as the fire continues. Myths of endless fear. It is easy to imagine medieval nights as terrifying. Wolves prowling, witches whispered, every sound a threat. Yet most records speak not of fear, but of boredom. Long hours were filled with talk, with silence, with the telling of stories. Wolves were rare visitors, witches rarer still. The myth of dread softens into the reality of endurance. Agnes hums her endless tune, pausing only to offer commentary on the tale told. Bertram interrupts often, claiming details are wrong, though no one asked his memory. Stories wander of saints, of travelers, of animals speaking in human voices. Some are half-remembered, others invented in the telling. The sound is steady, low, weaving through the long night, like the threads of a cloak. You feel your eyes grow heavy even as voices continue. Step by step, banking the fire for the night. The fire is more than warmth. It is the measure of survival. Each night it must be tended. Step 1. Gather embers, pushing them gently into a mound. Step 2. Cover with ash, smothering the flame just enough to preserve it. Step 3. Place a log across, not to burn, but to wait, ready to catch at dawn. Step 4. Lower the iron pot lid, sealing sparks inside. The room darkens, but the fire sleeps instead of dying, ready to wake with morning. A mild dilemma. You hold one more log in your hand. Do you place it now, giving warmth for the next hour, or save it for tomorrow when the day might prove colder still? The choice carries no urgency. Both paths hold warmth, though one delays it. You place the log back beside the hearth, leaving the question unanswered. Rules of the long night. Long nights in winter come with their own rhythm, followed by most without thinking. Speak softly, for sound carries strangely in darkness. Do not waste candles. Let fire be enough. Tell stories until words run out. Then let silence be its own tale. Bank the fire before sleep, always. Keep cloaks near at hand, for blankets grow thin before dawn. Accept snores as company, not nuisance. Let morning arrive when it chooses. Do not chase it. These rules are not strict, but they settle over the village, calming the long hour. A story of angels in frost. It is said in a neighboring hamlet that frost painted angels on the inside of a cottage wall. Each morning the shapes returned, wings, halos, faces, formed by breath meeting cold wood. The family called them blessings, though skeptics muttered of drafts and cracks. The story lingers, told in evenings when conversation thins, a reminder that even frost can become art. Quirky exaggeration. Bertram snores so loudly tonight that Agnes declares the sound could replace the church bell. She hums louder to cover it, claiming her tune is holier than his lung. Their competition fills the night, half serious, half comic, until the others laugh softly into their cloaks. Evening cadence. The hours stretch, longer than they seem to deserve. The fire glows faintly, cloaks rustle, breath rises in pale clouds. Stories taper into silence, snores begin. Agnes hums her tune one final time before letting it fade. The night holds steady, long but gentle. You lie back, blanket rough against your chin, breath warm in the cool air. Outside, frost thickens on the roofs. Inside, shadows fold slow. The fire settles, the night stretches, and time itself drifts with you into stillness. Winter games and leisure. Winter does not remove joy, it only changes its The frost may press hard against shutters, the nights may lengthen, and the fields may lie dormant, but people still find ways to pass the hour. Leisure is not an escape from work, it is its companion, woven into evenings, carved into long stretches of darkness, whispered in games, and sung in quiet song. You notice, as the days shorten, how neighbors gather more often, how children invent diversions in frozen lanes, and how laughter, though subdued, still threads its way across the silence of snow. The smell of wood smoke drifts steadily, mixed with faint scents of ale, wool and damp rush. Sounds rise and fall, dice rattling on wood, voices teasing gently, a tune hummed by Agnes, a cough from Bertram. Touch becomes part of play too, the rough grain of dice in hand, the cold burn of frost on cheeks, the smooth surface of ice beneath boots. Leisure is a full tapestry of senses, muted but present, always wrapped in the patience of winter. The frozen pond. When frost deepens, the pond becomes a mirror. Children run to it eagerly, stamping their boots on the ice to test its strength. The sound is hollow, echoing faintly, and the frost holds. You watch as they slide, boots skimming across the surface. Some stumble, arms waving, laughter bursting in short clouds of breath. Others glide more smoothly, leaning forward, finding rhythm in the glide. The air smells crisp sharp, carrying the faint scent of smoke from cottages nearby. Step by step the pond becomes a playground. Stones are cleared from the surface, brushed aside with brooms. Small branches are placed at the edges, marking boundary. Children form lines, taking turns to slide. Laughter fills the air, short but bright, carried briefly before frost swallows it. Agnes arrives, shawl wrapped tight, declaring the ice is safe only because she hummed a blessing earlier. Bertram mutters that her humming cracks the ice more than it blesses. Their quarrel floats across the pond as steady as the children's games. A mild dilemma at the pond. You see one child fall, landing hard on the ice. The laughter pauses, then resumes when the child stands, brushing frost from wool. Should you call them off the pond, reminding them of danger, or let them continue, knowing the joy outweighs the bruise? The choice is light, lingering like the mist above the frozen water. Games, indoors. When night falls, games shift inside. The cottage becomes the hall of leisure, its walls containing voices, its hearth providing both warmth and light. Dice appear first, small cubes carved from bone, their edges uneven, their dots warm. The rattle against wood is sharp, rhythmic. Each throw is followed by silence, then quiet groans or murmurs. Bertram insists the dice are cursed against him,
though he plays each night. Agnes claims she can sense fortune by listening to the rattle, humming in time with the riddles are told between throws. One voice asks, another listens. Answers arrive slowly, sometimes correct, sometimes not. The room fills with pauses more than words, the quiet of thought stretched across firelight. Step by step the pattern of evening unfolds. Dice rattle, fortunes claim. Riddles asked, silence gathered. Ale poured, mugs passed. Laughter rises, then fades again. The air smells of ale, thick, earthy, faintly sour. The taste lingers on tongues, warm despite the cold. A quirky tale of dice. One evening, Bertram loses 3 rounds in a row. He slams his fist gently on the table, muttering that goats roll better dice than he does. Agnes hums louder, declaring that even her shawl could win if given the chance. The others laugh softly, the sound weaving between fire crackles. The dice continue to fall. Bertram sulks, though he still reaches for the bone cubes, unable to resist another chance. A moral puzzle. You sit with dice in your hand. Should you let Bertram win this round, soothing his pride, or play fairly and risk his muttering growing louder? Both paths carry little weight, yet the thought lingers as you drop the dice to the table. Music and carols. Not all leisure is game. Sometimes it is song. Instruments appear, simple but steady. A drum of stretched hide, a pipe carved from wood, a stringed instrument patched with care. The sounds are not polished, but they fill the room. Carols drift, familiar refrains repeated each year. Voices rise unevenly, some strong, some cracked. Children hum along, sometimes forgetting words. Agnes hums even when no one else does, her tune weaving through every carol. Historians remind us that peasants had music, despite myths of silence. Records list payments for musicians at feasts, notes of songs carried by scribes. The myth of wordless villages fades into the truth of music woven into daily life. The smell of smoke thickens as songs continue, wool scratchy against skin, the sound of voices blending with crackling logs. The night grows heavier, but the songs keep it from pressing too hard. At children's pastimes, children invent their own diversion. Bones from meals become dice, or knuckle bones, rattled on floors. Small wooden figures, carved crudely, serve as toys. Horses with uneven legs, people with square heads, animals guessed more than seen. Snow itself becomes children roll it into mounds, toss handfuls, stamp paths through drifts. Their cheeks redden, their breaths puff like steam. Laughter bursts short and sharp, then fades as cold presses them back indoors. You watch as a child presents a carved figure proudly, claiming it is a saint, though it looks more like a goat. The others nod solemnly, accepting the claim without question. A mild dilemma. One child asks to borrow your knife for carving. You hesitate. The blade is sharp, the wood soft. Should you allow it, trusting careful hands, or decline, keeping safety? The question lingers, simple but persistent, as the child waits with hopeful eye. Neighbors in leisure. Neighbors gather more often in winter, their footsteps crunching along the lane, their cloaks carrying frost indoors. They sit near the hearth, mugs of ale passed, dice shared, riddles exchanged. Gossip fills the spaces between games, soft and steady. Agnes announces that her shawl frightened off a crow earlier, proof of its power. Bertram mutters that crows laugh at shawls. The others listen, smiling faintly, enjoying the rhythm of their quarrel as much as any game. The cottage fills with warmth, not from fire alone, but from voices layered, steady, unhurried. Rules of winter play. Even leisure has its codes, followed quietly but firmly. Dice are shared, never kept. Ale mugs pass to the left, or riddles must be answered, even if only with silence. Children carve, but only under watch. Music need not be good, only steady. Bertram's complaints are tolerated, but never rewarded. Agnes's humming is accepted, though never praised. Laughter fades gently, never loudly. These rules keep the game steady, shaping evenings into rhythm. Quirky exaggeration. Agnes claims her humming keeps wolves from approaching the village. Bertram insists wolves would rather face frost than her tune. Their debate becomes part of the night's play, as steady as dice or riddles. Children whisper that the shawl hums on its own when left near the hearth. Evening cadence. As the night deepens, laughter softens. Dice rest on the table, riddles left unanswered, mugs empty. The fire glows lower, shadows stretching. Agnes hums her final tune. Bertram snores where he sits. Others lean back against benches. The games pause, the songs fade, the night folds quietly. Leisure has filled the hours, softened the frost, carried voices across darkness. The laughter fades, the fire sighs, and the night drapes over the village like a heavy cloak. Winter's end. Winter never ends suddenly. It unravels slowly, like thread pulled from worn cloth. The snow begins to thin, first in patches near the lanes, then in larger spaces where the sun lingers longest. Frost still visits, but its grip loosens. You notice the change not in grand gestures, but in small signs: water dripping steadily from the eaves, mud returning to paths, the faintest green pressing through earth. The air smells different. Smoke still lingers, but mingled now with damp soil and thawing wood. When you step outside, the ground no longer crunches. Instead it yields, soft, leaving marks behind. Your boots feel heavier with clinging mud. Each sound echoes differently, less hollow, more alive. Myth of constant winter hardship. It is often imagined that winter claimed countless lives every year, that villagers sat waiting for famine and despair. Yet manorial rolls, church accounts, and wills show endurance. Death did come, but so did survival. Again, and villagers prepared, rationed, shared, and reached spring with enough to continue. The myth of inevitable starvation softens into reality. Hardship, yes, but met with persistence. Food growing thin. By the last weeks, food is leaner. Pottage holds more water than bean. Bread grows darker, ground from whatever grain remains. Salt barrels are nearly scraped empty, the fish within fewer. Yet even in scarcity, meals remain. A root forgotten in a cellar becomes treasure. A handful of dried peas becomes supper. Agnes announces proudly that her shawl not only frightened Frost, but preserved her hens, for they still lay eggs, even now. Bertram mutters the eggs taste of onions. The others eat them gratefully, regardless. A mild dilemma. You hold one last apple, wrinkled but sweet. Should you eat it now, tasting spring early, or keep it longer, letting it soften further? The choice feels larger than it is, yet you weigh it carefully, step by step, preparing for spring. Even as winter lingers, tasks shift. Step 1. Clear ditches where melting snow will soon run. Step 2. Mend tools once more, readying them for soil. Step 3. Lead animals into sun, letting them shake off months of shelter. Step 4. Count seeds, measure hope against handfuls. The work is quiet, but it leans forward, no longer only enduring but preparing. Rules of the turning season. As winter wanes, villagers follow another set of unspoken codes. Share what remains, for hoarding now serves no one. Mend boots before fields demand them. Air out cloaks, letting smoke drift away in spring wind. Listen for birds, their return marks true change. Do not trust the first thaw, it will freeze again. Celebrate small signs, but remain patient. These rules, like winters, are steady guides, holding until warmth returns. Stories of thaw. Bertram insists he remembers a spring when Frost never left until midsummer. Agnes replies that his memory stretches longer than truth. Children splash in puddles, boots heavy with mud, their laughter carrying further than in frost. Dogs bark again, chasing scents through thawing lanes. The village begins to sound different, less muffled, more awake. A moral puzzle. A neighbor arrives asking for a measure of grain to last their household until new planting. You could give it, risking your own stores thinning further, or you could refuse, knowing your family's comfort matters too. The choice hovers, not urgent, but steady. Another of winter's quiet dilemmas. Quirky exaggeration. Agnes claims her humming has not only kept Frost away but also summoned the sun. Bertram retorts that if this is true, she should hum louder to bring warmth faster. Children join in, humming poorly, filling the lane with mismatched notes. The sound becomes a ritual of its own, half jest, half hope. Evening cadence of the last cold. You sit again by the hearth. The fire burns lower, for wood piles are nearly gone. The blanket still scratches, but soon cloaks will hang more often by doors than shoulders. The cottage smells of damp earth, smoke, and the faint promise of air turning fresh. The night is still cold, but it feels different, less permanent, more passing. You close your eyes, hearing the drip of water from the eaves, the last groans of Frost retreating. Bertram snores, Agnes hums. The season leans quietly into chair. The fire dims, the frost thins, and winter folds itself into memory.